This video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. We just had the best season of Legacies, and it was the last one. To put this into perspective, let's remember that Legacies was part of the fictional universe known as the Vampire Diaries universe. So the origins of the show trace back to 2009. The show itself is a direct spin-off of the Vampire Diaries spin-off, The Originals. The universe has now ended after 13 seasons, and well, you can guess it, lots of fans are pissed. Amid all the vampire craze going on in the late 2000s, show creator Julie Plec managed to build a vampire world that would stay relevant long after the vampire craze would die down. Her source material? A book series from the 90s by author L.J. Smith. So, quick disclaimer. If you're a fan of Legacies and you love the show, no one's judging you. I'm not judging you. But you're not going to like this video. So this is your chance to exit now. Yes, now. Because again, you're not going to like what I have to say. I don't think I'm going to be nice about it. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to talk about. But so far, I don't think I'm going to be nice. So this is your warning. Like, I'm not here to just like argue with people and tell them that they shouldn't like the show, because everyone's allowed to like whatever they want. Like, the show wasn't like the worst abomination ever or whatever. Okay, I'm just, as a longtime fan of the Vampire Diaries universe, I want to rant about it, and I think that I'm allowed to. So again, if you are gonna get like emotional or like triggered by it or whatever, like just exit this video. It's not for you. But you know, thank you for giving the video a chance if you want to stay, but you have been warned. I will probably not be nice about this. So yeah, okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the TVD universe has officially ended. Netflix uploaded the 4th season and I'm finally up to date. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not surprised about the ending, but I'm still really disappointed. In 2017, it was announced that The Originals was ending after its 5th season and we would get our second spin-off of this universe. You can guess it, fans weren't too happy with the news of such a beloved show like The Originals coming to an end. Then and there, the fans already had a negative association with Legacies, directly blaming the character of Hope Michelson for having ruined The Originals and being the cause of its ending. Season 1 airs, and unsurprisingly, it's one of the most underwhelming first seasons out of the 3. But it's also understandable because unlike The Originals, we didn't know these characters yet, and the show was still trying to find its ground. Right out of the bat, one thing was obvious: the show wasn't made for the same audience as the older show. On this show, the writers decided to go with a completely different format for this universe, the Monster of the Week format. With this, every week we were introduced to some new mythical creature that had never been seen or heard of before in this universe. Season 2, basically the same thing except a few new additions. For a while, no one remembered Hope, Josie became Dark Josie, and more characters were unfairly being dropped left and right. Season 3 picked up right where Season 2 left off. Still more prison world nonsense. Landon and Hope did the deed, and he dissolved into black goo. They started a season-long back and forth on bringing Landon back to life. We got a new significant addition, Cleo. Hope was forced to activate her vampire side and fully become a tribid, and with this we finally concluded the 3-season-long Malivore battle. And Season 4, well, that's when shit finally got real, and then it ended. Like, it just ended. So Legacies is a spin-off, which means that there's no way to escape the comparisons, and it's easy to disappoint fans with a spin-off because the expectations from fans that already know a universe is always higher than when the fans have no idea what they're about to watch. What does it take to make a successful spin-off? For one, it's often advised not to rehash the events that just happened on previous shows, and Legacies started off on the right foot there. The main plot of Season 1 Legacies begins 2 years after the events of The Originals finale and begins a completely new story that has no relation to either show. Second point, take characters in a different direction. Just like the first point, pretty early on, Legacies took a completely different route than its predecessors. The Vampire Diaries began as the story of 2 vampire brothers entering the life of a girl identical to another woman they both had strong ties with 160 years prior. If you could only define the Vampire Diaries with, say, one phrase, it would probably be brotherhood, love, and happiness. The Originals was centered around power and family, and the phrase that would ultimately describe the entire show would be the reunification and downfall of the Michelsons. Now, Legacies, I don't know. I mean, if I had to describe the majority of the show, I could say Halivore. No, I'm kidding. But like, seriously though, I guess it could be described as a new age for supernatural. I don't know, I probably sound really dumb right now, but yeah. Okay, point 3, don't dawdle. In other words, don't waste your viewers' time. This one isn't even up for debate, as we wasted 3 seasons on a terrible villain. Point 4, raise the stakes. I don't think we need to go any further here either. Legacies out of the 3 shows has been the tamest one. The originals rose the stakes, maybe even too much for Legacies to follow, but nonetheless, the stakes in Legacies weren't even as high as they were in the earlier seasons of The Vampire Diaries. There are many points similar to this that you could look at and compare the 2 shows to understand what makes a good spin-off. On paper, when you look at Legacies, sure, it's not the model example of a flawless spin-off, but it does follow some key points that should have given it strong basis to stand on. Now, if you've watched the show, you know that in terms of being a quote-unquote good spin-off, it failed. First, before we move on, let's talk about Atlas VPN. So I've been traveling this summer, and in my free time, I've been able to catch up on a lot of shows that have just been added to Netflix. Here's the deal though. If you're familiar with streaming platforms and services, then you know the catalogs change from country to country, and that can be a bummer sometimes. When Netflix uploaded Legacies, I couldn't find it where I was at the time, and that's where Atlas VPN saved the day. For those of you who are big fans of Friends or The Office, well, guess what? With Atlas VPN, you can still enjoy them from anywhere. But not only can you enjoy the geographical benefits of being somewhere without actually being there, you get to protect all your devices at the same time. Atlas VPN blocks malicious links, ads, and trackers, and notifies you when someone's trying to steal your data. Oh, and that's not all. With Atlas VPN, you get the best deals when shopping online, and all of this is yours for only $1.83 a month instead of $10.99. And that's for 3 years and an extra free 3 months. You'll be saving 83% on this deal. Like, seriously, you should try it. $1.83 a month to protect all of your devices. Find the best deals online and access numerous platforms with geographical restrictions from anywhere with any device. Just click the link down below in the description box and get access to all of this for just $1.83 monthly for 3 years. First, I'd like to talk about the elephant in the room, the blatant imitation of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is about a teenage girl named Buffy who's known as the Slayer. It's her destiny to fight and kill monsters, which includes everything from vampires to demons to monsters from the myth and legends. She goes to high school and forms a friendship with a group of friends who call themselves the Scooby Gang, and she has a guardian whom they call the Watcher, whose job is to teach her everything she needs to fulfill her destiny, and he's also like the library at school that Buffy goes to, and blah blah blah. Okay, both Buffy and Legacies follow the Monster of the Week format. On a surface level, I don't think either show did better than the other. Like, okay, hear me out. It was the same thing, the same plots and storylines and episode conclusions most of the time. However, when we dig deeper, the real difference lies in the character progressions and relationships between the 2 characters and the stakes at hand. No pun intended. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a lot darker than Legacies, so I mean, at the end of the day, it also comes down to your preference, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer did most things better than Legacies. I mean, Legacies on very rare occasions, and I repeat, very rare occasion, did a couple things better, but nonetheless, I'm just gonna say it right now, Buffy the Vampire was superior. And also, it was the original show, and everything there was original. I mean, Legacies kind of copied, so I mean, I'm just putting it out there. Let's look at a couple of examples here. One of my favorite character arcs was Lizzie Saltzman's. There was a lot of depth in Lizzie's storyline, her background and her struggles. We saw her relationship develop with Hope, MG, and her sister in a wholesome way. With their mean girl gone nice storylines, Lizzie and Cordelia are often compared to one another. They're both done very well. But we got to see the impact Lizzie's negative behavior had on her relationship with the people around her. She was the character who took the most accountability out of everyone on that show. In my opinion, as frustrating as it might have been getting from point A to point B, Lizzie's arc is one that could hold up even in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. Like, if she was on that show, it would actually still be a compelling and convincing arc. As viewers, we felt and saw Buffy's inner turmoil throughout the show. While she was facing monsters, demons, and vampires, she was also, facing her own internal battles. This made her such an interesting protagonist to follow. In the first few seasons, we saw her struggle to be normal and fit in. She wanted to be a teenager and have a normal life. Buffy was already struggling with internalized conflicts when the show started, but over time, things became darker, especially when Buffy dies at the end of the 6th season. This represented the real shift for Buffy. In the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe, there's no turning off feelings. You could argue that turning off your feelings in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe would be, a soulless vampire versus a vampire with a soul. Buffy and Hope as protagonists and their character development is where we can draw the comparison here. As the show went on, Buffy struggled with understanding herself and thinking she was broken. When she was brought back to life, there was an internal conflict going on with Buffy that was never overtly addressed, but instead showed with the change in her demeanor. It was later addressed in the episode One More Feeling. The way the episodes progressed subtly by building Buffy's internal struggle was an arc really well done. Hope turning off her humanity wasn't bad. Honestly, it was done at the right time, but at the point where we got, it felt like been there, done that. Hope's character should have had so much baggage that turning off her feelings shouldn't have been necessary for her just going off track. That's what I personally think. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Legacies have a great deal in common, and Hope and Buffy are often compared. But honestly, when I look at their characters, I'm like, there's not even that much to compare. Like, yes, they're both female protagonists who are one of a kind, but they're different in a lot of ways. The way I see it is, if you could pull one character who's really similar to another character from one universe and put them together, it would be odd because these two characters would be so similar that it would be off-putting. Like, imagine bringing Seth Cohen's and Stas Stilinski together in the same show. It would mess with the dynamic and the balance the character would bring to the show. Ultimately, one of those two characters would be redundant. Okay, in case I didn't make any sense, what I mean is that as far as Buffy and Hope go, I doubt it would ever be weird or that they would cancel each other out if either party was added to their respective shows. In fact, I think they could even complement each other. Hope was raised in an environment where she understood who she was to some degree. Hope is an extremely powerful character. She knows that. We as viewers know that, right? And this power is something that's instilled in her. It's part of her identity. She knows it. And even though Hope might be one of a kind, there's some people around her she could still relate to. Some kids who have lost everything, who are supernatural like her. There's no imminent threat that was bearing down on her up until they decided to change it in season 4. I mean, even if it was the case, unlike Buffy, it was never drilled in her head that the fate of the world lied in her hands. Don't get me wrong, there's similarities between the way Hope and Buffy are written, but if we're being honest, Buffy's development was more thorough, and perhaps it was because they had more seasons to explore her character. I mean, saving and protecting Landon was her main goal for 2/3 of the show. While the writers may have been trying to let the audience know that Hope was struggling from past trauma, it wasn't done well enough for the viewer to truly understand her and connect with her. If you watch the originals, you get it. You know what she's been through, but if you've only seen Legacies, it's just not properly addressed and explored. Buffy has 3 main love interests on the show, and all those love interests are connected to Buffy's character in a different way. All 3 love interests were able to help the audience see a side of life Buffy was struggling with, even if most of it was unvoiced. We saw her struggle to try to understand her love for Angel and ultimately letting him go. With Riley, she had a connection to humanity, a person with whom perhaps she could have lived a normal life. Hope also had that kind of dynamic with Landon, but because it lasted so long, it became repetitive and tiring for the audience, and there was nothing new the relationship was giving us. Like with Buffy and Spike, who began the relationship after Buffy was brought back to life and she eventually developed feelings for him, this tied into her feelings that she came back wrong. Like, remember when Elena became a vampire and for the longest time it was implied that she fell for Damon because she was sired to him? Things like that, where we never got to explore those other aspects of Hope because of her relationship with Landon and how almost her entire arc was just circled around him. All of this to say, I get why they wanted to recreate their own kind of Buffy. Buffy is honestly one of the most iconic shows, but unfortunately, I think they missed the mark on too many things, and it just wasn't worth ruining the lore of the show. I'd say even if the show is successful in recreating, the Buffy of this generation, this format just couldn't exist and work in the TVD universe. Malavor is the worst big bad that has ever existed in the TVD universe, and that includes those terrible Whitmore College scientists, by the way. How can you go from a villain like Catherine or the Michael Sons to a mute mudman? Up until season 3, Malavor never had a face-to-face showdown with the Super Squad. He never seemed like a real character. I mean, even when he was using Landon as a vessel, it wasn't entirely convincing, just because for over 2 seasons, we always saw other characters doing the work for him. The episodes were basically a collection of events that could be watched at random most of the time. A story doesn't give significant character development if you can skip multiple episodes and still be at the same place you were with most characters multiple episodes before. Season 2 was arguably one of the most useless things to have aired on TV. If the useless filler episodes that did absolutely nothing for storyline purposes or character developments were trimmed out, season 2 and season 1 could have been one season, and a much better one too. A huge part of what got us hooked into this Vampire Diaries universe was the lore and the mystery behind it. Julie Plec had already adapted the perfect world in the Vampire Diaries. Later in season 5, when the Travelers were added, most fans hated it, and for many people, the addition of Cade had basically already ruined the world. Then with Legacies, we basically got a mythical creatures catalog with no real depth to them. There were no stakes, no real threats. We never worried about any characters making it out alive. Every time I was watching them fight the villain of the week, it was never, oh, what's gonna happen? It's always like, okay, so how long is it gonna take for them to get rid of this one? I just don't understand why the writers of this show specifically don't give a about their fandoms. There's so many moments that if they just gave the fans what they wanted instead of sticking to their guns, they would have gotten so much support. In season 4, they finally decided to revert back to the old ways, and guess what? It was the best one yet. It makes it that much worse that it got cancelled because the show finally found its balance. I only covered a few issues with the show, and there's so many more. Part of me thinks that we shouldn't have ever gotten show characters from previous shows that had such a strong bond with other characters. Caroline being absent for that many traumatic moments of her daughter's lives, like, come on. Hope's very existence being in full danger and the originals not showing up, like, please, that would never happen. And yes, I'm very aware that the actors themselves have a lot to do with this, but still, it all just adds to the pile of why the show in many ways would always just sort of have inexplicable gaps that would ruin the credibility of the story. I mean, I applaud them for the diversity this time around and trying to accurately portray teens, but nah. Season 4 just proved that they could have killed it, but they just kept with us and trying to fulfill whatever childhood dream they had to recreate this show. I don't know, I'm just rambling here, but I realize as I'm concluding this video that it was all over the place, and I'm sorry for that. I just caught up with the show now, and these are all things sitting at the top of my head, and yes, I know there are plenty of other things that needed to be addressed, but I think I'm just going to conclude this here because I feel like this is becoming an endless rant. But hey, the comment section is always open and there's a lot more to discuss. So please add the things that I skipped over because there are lots of it and the characters themselves should be discussed, and I might make a video about that. Just an actual like deep dive, unbiased video. Let me know if you want that. If you don't, that's also okay. There's lots of other videos. I'm also working on my other videos. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And again, comment. And thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.